some sort of little intro video music. It's so easy to do these days. We can have it. But
We'll have to
anyways,
do it.
we are
Step up
live.
your game. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, I know. No, well, how you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing good, man. Good morning. Hey, so for the listeners, right, don't realize, but I always give Scott a quick call, before we kick these things off. And man, what a great morning, right? I mean, I know you were out walking on the beach this morning, right, with the dog and kind of doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was good.
No, we're lucky to live in this area. We have a bit of all four seasons. That's why Jen likes it, coming from California.
Yeah,
little bit
just constant blue sky and 70-degree weather, right?
And I'm from Ohio.
That has its pluses too.
Absolutely, and I'm from Ohio, so it's like the winters aren't quite as bad, so that's nice. But
yeah.
No, it's a good place when there's job opportunities and stuff, and a lot of new stuff popping up. We actually did a cool thing last night. Went to a coffee making workshop, like learn how to make a latte, like learn how to do the latte art, how to do the little heart and tulip and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, and it was a really great spot. Do you know where Armed Forces Brewery is?
So I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with the location.
It's kind of in this industrial area that they've now turned into flats and apartments and restaurants and stuff. And it was a coffee shop there called Coalescence. Really great space just for hanging out and working, as opposed to a Starbucks. Very, very open. Take their coffee very seriously. We just happen to meet the owners, goes to our CrossFit gym. So Chris and I, the star of the Blue Angels movie on Amazon, Chris Cheese, we're all in the same gym at CrossFit Little Creek. And so the owner happened to go there, and we were like, hey, Chris is thinking of opening a coffee shop, as he's talked about. So he's like, hey, let's go learn how to make some coffee. So, honestly, it could be a cool networking event. They also have a large event space, 44 people. It's an old, workshop.
Oh, wow.
Like car garage, space. Yeah. Painted up real nice. So they've got a huge room that we could potentially hold workshops, I think. Would be good. Would be a cool spot. Or just do the coffee thing, as another meetup. Likewise, we've got got another tiki boat coming up. I was just thinking this morning on the walk, my birthday's right around that time, and I'm not a big throw birthday parties and stuff. So I'll have this work dually as my as my birthday celebration, since we got some friends.
Speaking of birthdays, right? We got a couple out there. Remember, Sarah Cummings was going to try to join us this morning, but 4th of July is so close, I think that complicated. But her husband, JJ, Yank Cummings, right? His birthday's on the 4th of July. So kind of a shout out early.
Right. America's birthday and JJ's birthday.
And JJ's. And then a shout out. I don't know if Joe Johnson, we kind of do our Being the Biscuit Wednesday morning group, man, which is where I'm always at in the morning prior to checking in with you and kicking this thing off. So I let Joe know we were going to be doing our live podcast. So I don't know if he is punched in and listening in, but if he is, hey Joe, and shoot us a question, man, if you got it. So
yeah,
but it was an interesting topic for today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do today, is go through some questions people have been sending you a lot over, I'm sure the last few months, but you talk about this often with me. So I asked you to say, what are the questions that people are kind of asking you the most? And thought we'd do a little bit of an interview style. I'll kind of just throw them at you.
I'm good with that. And just to kind of cue it up, right, the discussion for the group out there and the listeners, right, it's kind of centered around retention, right? And I don't have the stats. I didn't look them up, Scott, but I think it's fairly certain, or safe to say that most services right now are kind of struggling a little bit with retention. Maybe the Marine Corps hit their goals, on not only recruiting, but retention. But I think a lot of the services right now are struggling with retention. And, it was a topic that was near and dear to our heart, right? You wore the uniform just like I did. And, retention is important, man. We got to hang on to good people, and we absolutely want to do that. And when we started Blue Water and then the partnership with US Vet Wealth, right?
Mhm.
I think the furthest thing from our mind was to ever infringe upon retention in our services, right? And we don't go there. But the genesis of this topic, right, as you know, Scott, we've had the conversation a little bit before, is, hey, periodically hearing a little bit of buzz, is Blue Water a threat to retention, right? Are we working against keeping, services, securing the ability to keep and maintain their best and brightest, right? And I really take that to heart, right? Because, man, that is our roots. That is where we came from, right? We guard retention. We understand the value of that. Shoot, the next generation is already at it. My son is active duty flying in the Navy, right? I understand the need for great leadership, and you got to hang on to them. I never viewed Blue Water, as we were putting it together, to be a threat to retention. I still don't today. In fact, quite the opposite, right? We view this, and we had aspirations to create Blue Water as an analytical metric, a bit of insight that we could provide leadership for them to credibly say, look, stay. We need everybody to stay. And, individuals, they're strange animals, right? They reach a certain point in time where they get angsted. They feel anxious. Oh my gosh, I've got to make this next step in my life. I got to get going. I don't know much about it, but I think it's going to be a heavy lift. And man, I got to get going. And the retention tool on the side of Blue Water, as we plug in with senior leaders, is giving them and arming them with the analytics. This is exactly what it looks like. This is what it looks like by rank. Here's how long you can expect to be in your transition, or as we like to say, career progression. Here's what you can expect to make compensation. Here's where everybody ahead of you is landing. Here is the pre-built network of individuals just like you ready to plug in. We're going to walk you through a purposeful design, right, of your next step and how to do that, how to assess a good fit. In other words, this is an analytical tool for leadership to be able to go, hey, it's not your time yet. We need everybody to stay. So let's just kind of relax and calm down. Everybody stay. But when the time is right, when the individual's family and the individual's Navy family all come together and they assess it is time, I want leadership to be able to say, when that time comes, we've got your back, right? We truly do. And we've partnered with Blue Water Advisors, and we are going to plug you into the network, and this is a proven process that is going to work for you. And that's powerful, right? I think in delivery. So I know that was a little bit long-winded, Scott, but just wanted to give the background of kind of how we came up with this topic, right? And we protect that very closely, right?
No, I know you're it's passionate for important for you to meet people where they're at, and that's kind of the point of this whole process of designing your future. At some point, people just gotta do a shakedown of what kind of where all the pieces are at. And a lot of times, if you are in a leadership position, you just can't afford yourself that ability. And that's the point of you being the officer or the senior leader. And so what is, if we think about what retention really means, obviously we're talking about the broader force and those types of numbers. And so senior leaders that are worried about losing their top leadership around them. I mean, my perspective is we all know the game. Like everybody's going to get, sometimes people get retired. They don't want to yet, and they'd like to stay in. So since that's kind of off the table, it's like, the whole point is you're susceptible to the needs of the military, or your service that you're in, right? If they don't need you anymore, they're going to get rid of you. So I think the story I'm hearing,
to dovetail on that is everybody gets out eventually, right? And that's
right. So the story I'm hearing is, all right, senior leaders who are worried about this whole retention thing, and now they're kind of lumping in their their colleagues into that, the story is saying, all right, you've got other fish to fry. Maybe you need to focus on your job more right now, and probably with op tempo, you're not going to be able to retire on your own timeline. So that's why all these transition services came to play. But the problem with the traditional transition and military recruitment services, they are meant for the broader force.
Yeah.
And so yet again, we kind of leave that senior leadership group who have been kind of out of the loop in general when it comes to what comes up at retirement. If you could just, the whole goal is to, hey, you got to start networking, you got to start branding yourself. If you could just plop into, I mean, that's not the right word, but just drop in to a pre-built network where it's like, hey, we got you. Go ahead, focus on your job. Come get to this when it's right for you. Hopefully it's sooner than later, of course. If you are going to be getting out.
To have the ability to speak to it, not just with good intention and good intentful words, right? But to be able to speak to it analytically, to be able to look a large audience in the eye and say,
well, let's talk about actually that, because I know that was one of the questions we got is, okay, so analytically, let's dive in. So again, talking about the senior leaders versus the broader force.
Sure.
What are we talking about with those analytics, and how can that be valuable?
When we started Blue Water, right? I mean, I reflected back on my own transition, right? And I was, many have heard my story before. I was appreciative, Scott, right? I was the recipient of many of the institutionalized and legacy programs that are out there, like, TAP. Although I think when I went through, we didn't call it TAP. I think it was GPS, but I think we call it TAP now. Tri-hatted organization that it is, sometimes struggling with what it wants to call itself, I guess. So, but anyway, that transition service was made available. And then there were other services that were available. And I won't list them all, but, and I was appreciative, right? But it's important for everybody to understand that when I was going through that process, most of us don't have a yardstick. And what I mean by that is we don't have a means to assess the quality of this information, right? Because we're not immersed in that world. I really don't, I'm not fully transitioned. I'm not immersed in corporate America or defense industry or government contracting, whatever world I'm pursuing. So you make an assumption, right? You assume that this information is the most current, relevant, credible information that is available to the military to bestow upon me, right? And in my own experience, so again, I'm not going to thrust this on anybody else, but, when I finally landed, I just was reflecting back on the information I've been the recipient of and everything. And I realized, God, that was a bad assumption, right? In many instances, I'd been the recipient of misinformation, right? And in cohorts, I always ask everybody the question, right? I love this. It's like, what's the one worse thing than having no intel? It's having bad intel, right? I mean, bad intel is worse than having no intel. And I just made the assumption, that I had received good intel, and that was a bad assumption, right? In many instances, it was bad intel, and some of it was just outright wrong. So getting back to the feedback part, right? I just said, okay, pretty ostentatious, Mike Wallace, I'm going to take it upon myself. I'm going to fix this problem, right? And so you stay up nights, weekends, and you develop this massive pass down. I wasn't asking anybody in the legacy institutionalized transition business, right, to do anything. Here you go. I'm just going to give you the answer. Don't teach this, teach this. Don't say it this way, say it this way, right? This isn't the priority. This is the priority, right? All these things that we'd been the recipient of, come to find out, wasn't, overly helpful. But, and I say it with a smile on my face now, and you probably are already chuckling, you think it's hard enough to change the vector of a program like that when you're active duty. Try plugging into a program like TAP or something when you're a retiree. Man, there's no door to knock on. There's nobody to give this product to. Nobody wants it. And it was really frustrating for me, right? And again, think of the loss of, your return on investment, right? There is no ROI. Like, think of the force that's stepping out. There's no effort to stay in touch with them. There's no effort to assess how was your transition process. Did it work for you? What could we do better? There's no process. There's none of that, right? And just that basic fact, coupled with, you see it every year, DOD gets rated. And to be fair, it's a Veterans Affairs, DOD, Department of Labor, tri-hatted program as TAP, right? And the report card comes out and it's fail, 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 right? How many years do we have to see that it's always assessed as a failure, right? Doesn't meet the needs of those veterans in transition, right? And so, to answer the question, I know it's a long way of getting to it, but building a tool, one of the very first things that we put in place with Blue Water is, I said, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to build this, then we're going to track as many analytics as what we can. Like, who is it that comes to the program? How early did they start in comparison to their day one on terminal leave? How long did it take them to secure their next success, right? How many weeks or months did it take? What was the most impactful, approach in that? Is it how well you write a resume? Is it networking? Is it, whatever it happens to be? We've now got visibility on the things that deliver the biggest impact in pursuit of your next success. Does starting earlier drive down your time in career progression? How about starting earlier and writing a good resume? Does that result in higher compensation rates, right? Like, all this data to be able to track so we can identify, what do we want to target? That way, if somebody comes up to me and says, you can reverse engineer this, I need to have a job by this day in this month, right? And I can pretty much say, well, you're going to have to back it up, and you're going to have to start your transition, and you're going to have to start building your networking bridge. And so you can reverse engineer this, and again, analytics are, you get it. There's a bell curve, and most people kind of fall in this window, some a little bit sooner, some a little bit later, but at least it gives us a framework to talk. And so when we built Blue Water, right, are there benefits to senior leaders having current understanding of the career progression process? Think of the impact. You don't just talk from a goodwill standpoint to your troops, to your team, to the senior leaders that are out there. You can look them in the eye and go, stay. I need you to stay invested. I know you're anxious, but don't worry, we've got your back. And this is what it is going to look like for you. Based on 350 other individuals that look just like you over the last 3 years, this is the trends that we are seeing. And that's powerful. I think it gives you the credibility. I mean, imagine this very senior leader talking to other senior leaders going, hey, we've got our hands around this. We've got a process and a program, and I can speak numbers and data to you, rather than, it's going to be okay, Scott, just trust me, right? I mean, you get the math behind it in the delivery. And I think that's why it's powerful. Does that make sense? I mean, I think it's a complete different delivery, right?
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I mean, and that just is part of answering the problem that people have, is all the questions around, like, just what is this going to take? I don't have the support structure around me. So being able to say, hey, this is what the guy before you just did. This is how long it took. Here's what he got. Here's how many people he talked to have that, and then be able to talk to that person specifically, directly, absolutely, if that would be valuable, is super useful. So, no, I think the fact that you've been tracking the data and the follow-ups with the landing reports, like you said, yeah, I mean, big military's job is not to get you a job after the military. The fact that they put all this stuff in place is kind of ironic in a way. But
that's a good point, right? That is a good. No, that's a really good.
Think about the Army's. The name of the Army's program is called Soldier for Life, which is the whole point of the program is to make them not be a soldier again, to get a job in the military. So it's like, oh boy. We've got
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
wrong kind of branding and mindset.
Well,
So I
yeah.
don't know if that was meant to keep people to do retention or not, maybe, but
Yeah.
you see the problem.
Yeah, and no, absolutely, right. And I personally wrestled with that a little bit at when the light suddenly came on, and I realized, wow, I haven't been the recipient of the most current, relevant, credible information that's out there. Okay, so you're like a little, kind of like what you just articulated. Is it the Navy's job to get me my next job? Yeah, I
Actually,
wrestled with that, right? I
that's
really
kind of like
wrestled with.
the next question is, should
Yeah.
services be required to provide these tools?
And again, I wrestled with it, and there was a part of me for a period of time that said, absolutely, I've given 30 years of my life, they should at least give me some process to set me on my way. But if they can't do it credibly and impactfully, right, and if it's going to fall short, um, for the grouping that we're talking about, then what is really the benefit? And so, maybe it's not the Navy's job to get you your next success, right? Maybe the Navy's job or the Army's job or the Marine or whatever, fight and win wars. Okay, let's put that up number one, right? Yeah, you got to be really good at that. But I do think, Scott, if we can shift our thinking a little bit, let's just focus on the return on investment. I mean, think about this. There really is very little effort put into tracking where did Scott Tucker go the second he hung up his uniform and what you pursued. There's very little effort into reaching out to you, Scott Tucker, from the areas that you were tied most closely to on the operations side, right? To say, hey, did you have any feedback for us? What went well for you? What didn't go well? What should we change? How long did it take you to find? Oh, by the way, where did you land? Right? And think of what that database could look like for future individuals stepping into their transition, which is exactly what we're trying to build here at Blue Water. People walk through the door and they go, Mike, do you know anybody at Microsoft? Does Blue Water have anybody at Anduril or Lockheed Martin or Boeing or Northrop Grumman or Centera Medical or Adobe, Xerox, Johnson & Johnson? Like, you name your company, right?
Yeah.
Over time, people will land in some amazing places. And with a little bit of effort, we can maintain a relationship with them and maximize the return on investment in so many different areas, right? And go ahead. You got a question.
No, let me ask, because you say return on investment. So that got me thinking to not just the retention problem, the recruiting problem in general, the kind of, the whole point of, we always thought of serving in the military as one of the most respected professions. And I still think that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
But, clearly there are issues out there where the American public is less interested in whatever, for whatever reason. And so when I think about what I hear most often as guys are coming out of the military, their last experience is going through what is intended to be a helpful transition process. And all
Right.
they, want to talk about is all the good times they had, with their buddies downrange in the unit. And yet the last thing they do before they go get their job is subject themselves to mass formation, education of saying, all right, military transition process. So we're not individualizing you. We've just lumped you into the whole. We've said the word transition. That means uncertainty and change. Process means don't worry, just do this and this, and we'll get you a job and you'll be a stat, employed. And so we're just setting ourselves up for mediocrity. And while I'm not suggesting people just avoid the traditional process whatsoever, but at the same time, until you customize, you're always going to be subject to somebody else's orders or agenda or SOPs or just status quo.
Yeah.
And that's not what I think people who come to us want, or people are going to listen to this show. They don't want the status quo. They were senior leader the whole time. So why would we not take a leadership position individually and just go, I thought they'd do a better job for me to get me, it's just like we're setting our expectations the wrong way. We're expecting how many times do they screw up your PCS orders or get your pay wrong or send you to duty station you didn't want? Like, what are we
Sure.
really expecting?
Yeah.
And what, Blue Water, Mike Wallace, US Vet Wealth, just you figuring out your own I mean, there's thousands of us out here saying, hey, we're here to support, consult as needed, but we want to help you design your own path. Obviously, there's a money component to it, but if this networking thing, knowing what do I need to know, what don't I know yet, we're here for that kind of quick information too. You're not, even if you hire a high-end consultant or whatever, you're not paying them by the hour. You're paying them for whatever they know and experience and who they've got that they can introduce you to real quick. This is just the old boys network style. That's just the way it works. And until we wake up and realize that, versus following the masses out the door of the military, I think we're at risk. Of missing out on bigger opportunities.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on, right? And the discussion is an intriguing one, and kind of bringing it back to the rumblings, not rumblings, but just the occasional off comment that, hey, is Blue Water a threat to retention?
Mm-hmm.
On the contrary, we see it completely, part of maintaining a healthy retention, right? In other words, don't be anxious about this. We absolutely are here to partner with you.
So,
when the time is right, but don't leave too soon, right?
Yeah. Let me frame this. Who's concerned? Because it reminds me of when people say like, I can't be on LinkedIn yet. I got my security clearance.
Yeah.
Or I can't believe people are posting that kind of stuff on LinkedIn, where it's like, I think they kind of already know who we all are already anyways. If you're getting out of the military, you need a job. At some point, you're just going to have to get on LinkedIn if you want to take advantage of, that type of opportunity. So is it people more kind of concerned, hey, if I let my boss know I'm working with Blue Water, are they going to be mad at me? Or is it more the senior leaders saying, I'd love to send my guys to you, but I'm worried that's going to make me look bad, like I'm trying to send my guys out the door?
I think it's the latter.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I think it's the latter because, we have now a growing, sizable membership, right, who have now been through Blue Water, and they're very vested because they realize they play a big part in building this program and making it the relevant program that it is through a responsive network. And so, they're not shy when they say, hey, Mike, just heads up, I had an interesting conversation the other day, because a lot of our efforts have been aimed at supporting regions or commands with this, right? Our message, our process, right? Our network. And they're saying, hey, just letting you know, there's a perception out there that, you're starting to become a threat to retention. And Scott, I can't tell you, I really take that to heart, right? I mean, that is absolutely not what we're working to build here. Couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, again, it's just so counter to the way you and I spent a large portion of our life in service. We understand the importance of this. Would never threaten this. In fact, I'll even go so far as to say, on occasion, I want to say at least weekly, but, I haven't tracked it, but often, frequently, individuals will reach out and, they typically start out just much like engaging with US Vet Wealth, but they just want to have a conversation. Hey, Mike, you got time for a phone call? Yeah, sure. I got time for a phone call. And the conversation will quickly jump into, hey, I'm not sure, what I'm going to do. What do you think I should do, Mike? Hey, if you were me, would you get out or would you stand? It goes to that kind of a conversation. And I tell the members right up front, I said, not going to have that conversation. That is
put that on me.
That is not my decision, right? That I am not, absolutely, because you and I understand the importance of that decision. Military service is a strange thing. Stay too long and you run the risk of being a little bit bitter and souring the good things that happen to you while you serve. Leave too soon and forevermore you will be completely unfulfilled because you will always, man, I should have stayed a little bit. I should have done these things before I left. Right. And that is a decision, right? That's a very personal decision that needs to be made by the individual with their family and their Navy family. And when that triad collectively decides it is time for you to pursue your next step, right? Maybe there's a forcing function in the military. Okay, maybe you didn't promote or something like that. Or maybe you're just, your statute is up, the amount of years, I can't stay any longer, right? And it's time for me to go. Whatever that is, if it's a conscious decision or if there's a forcing function, that triads, needs to deal with that. But I am passionate about once that decision is made, Scott, now we are a large group of like-minded professionals who have wore the cloth of the nation, who have navigated career progression to some success in some industry or company, who stands ready to be your instant network to plug into such that you can recreate what they did if that is your desire, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the powerful part of this, right? But I just won't get into those conversations.
No, and that's fine, because I don't think you need to be. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. If people are saying things like, "Oh, is blue water a threat?" Like, that's just somebody misunderstanding what's really happening. And it made me think, what if you had like ambassadors, like former Blue Water members who kind of represented their former unit and were just available to speak to the group or whatever, and not about Blue Water per se, just to say like, hey, I'm here to let you know, like, if you are having questions about retirement, just to have an ambassador to quickly alleviate the fears, so you can focus on whatever the priority of the day is and not have this thing just hanging out there. I mean, that's really what you're saying is, why just leave this uncertainty of, is somebody going to retain or not? Should I retain or not? Like, what am I going to do next? That's what you want to communicate to the commands. Use our members as ambassadors just to alleviate the concerns of the unknowns that are coming for your current service members, wherever they're at. Maybe they got years to come, but if they got 2 years of service left and that's just eating away with them, how effective are they going to be in your unit?
Absolutely. And to use them for services in a lot of different regards, right, is what I would say. Like, tell me, how did you decide, what to pursue? How did you assess it was a good fit? Like, all these things that go through active duty individuals' minds, because they aren't immersed in this environment. They're not there, right? And many of them, that gets exacerbated because we've all wore the uniform, but let's face it, we were part of a team. We led teams. We led great teams. We were, we did a lot of this. It was a team sport, man. You're out there doing great things. And when you step into this career progression or transition, there is a sense of oneness, right? You're going, holy cow, this is me, right? I've got to navigate this space. And we spend a lot of time talking to members. You're going, look, one of the strengths of Blue Water is you're not alone. You don't have to do this alone, right? Join the family, step into the team, right? And earn trust with our members. Guess what? They all look just like you. Many of them had similar roles and responsibilities as what you did. They have landed on their next success, and they stand ready to credibly share with you how they did that. And I think that's powerful, right? And the only thing it's kind of like The Godfather. You've heard me say it before, like, people come to cohorts, I go, I don't need anything from anybody here today, but there will come a time we'll knock on the door, right? I mean, and I think that's fair, right? I mean, we tell members, it's like, hey, the network is going to work for you. Our insight and keen insights and everything we bring to the table that we build, that will serve you. But there will come a time where you will land and you will be successful. And then we will want you to capture and preserve those keen insights for future members to review with you. And we will want you, when the people knock on your door, we will want you to have a conversation with them, right? It seems fair.
Yeah, well, it's more than fair. I think people appreciate that because everybody always wants to give back and share their tips, and they don't know the right environment to do it. And they might make the mistake of saying, this is what you should do to somebody behind them. And they got to have, the wherewithal to not, do
Right.
that as well. So, no, I
Right.
think, that's a big, and another thing that you're setting up as well is more of the digital stuff. We're working on
Yeah.
your workshop here. I think I got it muted, but we got this one coming out. We got a resume one. I know you want to do another one here for negotiating. So
That's
these
going to
would
be a
extra.
big one, compensation negotiation, and when to expect that, and how to, understand the language to use in those engagements. That's a big part of that. So, and you get full credit, Scott. You are the editor, and you put those things together masterfully, by the way. They're beautiful products. You really do. I mean, I absolutely rave on you every chance I get. I mean, that's just not a mastery of that tech that I've got right there. And you crank out some really good edits and some good products to help our members navigate those.
Do the bare minimum to make sure a message gets shared to the right people who might need to hear it. If we can have one person hear something that they find useful that might help them, then it's a success. So we can package you into a way that can be repeated, so that you can talk to more people at once, and that's a win, because there's a better chance of meeting success. So, no, happy to do it. It obviously is, it's a skill set I became useful. I didn't get a PMP or anything after I got out, or get an MBA. So I had to go.
Yeah, Scott, we started off this morning going, I wonder if we're going to have enough to discuss on this topic. And look at us, we're almost at 40 minutes, right?
No. I mean, you have concerns. You get it. Like, we understand. Like, I'm in the life insurance industry. Like, I hear all sorts of goofy stuff. It's just like, whatever. What you got to understand is there's always going to be a need for various things for certain people at the right time and place for them. Make your own choices. That is the point. When we're coming out of the military, it's hard to make those personal choices. It just seems like, well, that's kind of the way it seemed to go before, because we're used to following orders.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you got to recognize, hey, especially as senior leaders, you are in a different position, both in your career, your age, your health status is going to be different than the average American. You're making a big career change later in life than most, but you got a lot going for you.
Yeah.
Let's not squander that just by being concerned or upset that, I want to take the easy path, the easy button. We can still do a little bit of, we can make it easy. It doesn't have to be hard, but it ain't easy. It doesn't have to be, scary. That's the point. So,
no, I think as we're just kind of wrapping up, just real quick, right? What I would tell senior leaders, right? What I would tell, our flag leadership that is out there, don't leave this undriven, meaning don't let other senior leadership in your immediate reporting custody, right, feel angsted about transition, right? As the more senior individuals get, they do spend time talking about this. It's just a life-ism, right? Eventually they know, in an up and out organization, eventually they will have to make that next step. So of course they're going to be thinking about it, because they're A-type personalities. They want to be prepared. Nobody ever wants to be unprepared. That is who we are, right? I mean, that's America's away team. We never leave anything to chance. So our own lives should come as no surprise to senior flag leadership that, your direct reports are going to be looking at this, right? And what I would offer those senior leaders is, don't leave it unvectored. Share with them a credible, current, relevant resource like us here at Blue Water, and say, hey, analytically, here's what it looks like for you guys. So stay focused on the job at hand, but when the time comes and when it is right, and we all come together and assess that together, then we have a trusted, current, relevant, readable resource for you, right, to plug in with, and things will be okay. And you can speak to that analytically. This is what it will look like for you. This is what you can expect compensation. This is where everybody else is going. Not that you have to, but these are all the questions everybody wants answered, right? This is how long it is likely to take you. This is what is going to be required. This is going to be the value of how to target your resume and all the things that you don't know. You're going to be able now to approach that. And so I would say don't leave it untouched. Don't just make a false assumption that this is a threat to retention. Drive it. Pay into this, take charge of this, and own it. We're building the tools and providing the analytics for you to do that credibly, right? And I think that's powerful, right?
Oh, great, man.
Anyway,
cool, man.
Talking about it. What do you got going on in the U.S. vet wealth world, man? What I know you alluded to a tiki boat, maybe.
Yeah, we got Mike's flying into town. We'll set up
other Mike. Your Mike.
Yeah, my Mike on our team. No, summertime, man. 4th of July tomorrow.
Yeah, everybody have a great 4th. Be safe.
Stay inside, try to keep my dog calm.
Yeah, fireworks going off, and there was actually a big special on the news the other day about how to keep your pets calm with all the fireworks going on. Right?
Wow. So, anyways.
Yeah. Dope them up, knock them out. No,
I just feel I feel bad for the poor animals. They're like, what is going on?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man.
For us, man, we remain almost completely full of all our cohorts all the way through the end of the year into December, right? I think I've got 2 or 3 seats available in our Washington, D.C. October cohort. So if you're up in the D.C. area, you're thinking about stepping into the Blue Water family, right, and participate in a cohort, highly encourage you. Don't wait, you guys. These events are filling up, right? We're full. We're just coming off of our June. July is completely full with a waiting list, by the way. September up at Annapolis at the Naval Academy Alumni Association in the Flugel Center, completely full up there. Like I said, 2 or 3 seats available in October. And even our December cohort back here in Norfolk to wrap up the year is half full right now. So, these events do fill up. So don't wait. If you're interested, register soon, right?
All right.
And we look forward to hopefully seeing you at a cohort soon.
All right, man. Cool.
Thanks, Scott.
We will. I think we'll be on next week. Anyways, we'll be on here if we're here.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Take care, everyone. See you next week.
You too. See ya.